Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, every day on the John Campea Show, in the mornings, it's our main movie news show. We save time to take live questions, but here in the afternoons, that's all we do. Just all open discussion questions, talking about movies and entertainment, all of our favorite things here. Just a bunch of friends standing around a virtual water cooler, talking about the flicks we love, the flicks we didn't love so much, a little bit of television in here, there too. So, it's been a busy weekend. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'll give more details in the coming days, but I came to an agreement this weekend, and we need to finalize out just the final details and sign a contract and everything, but I have come to an agreement, and I'm very excited about it. My wife is very excited about it. I've talked to my Patreon supporters about this, so they know more details, but I'll reveal the rest of it a little later. But it looks like all that's left now is for us to close this deal. We're going to do that this week, and I'm very excited about it. My wife and I are going to go out to celebrate tonight, and we're very excited, and I'm excited for the channel, and I'm excited for a lot of things that are going to be happening. But again, more details and that kind of stuff to come. For those of you who are Patreon supporters and were part of our town hall meeting, our Patreon supporter town hall meeting, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But it looks like everything's moving forward. Again, more details will be given later. But suffice it to say, I'm in a pretty good mood. So anyway, with us all being in a good mood, and why not? It's a holiday here in the United States and Canada. It's Labor Day in both countries, and a good happy day to all of you guys all over the world, even if you don't have Labor Day in your country. All right, let's get things started today with the first question. The first question today comes to us from Ben Heyusa, who writes, remember the other week you said that the Jackie Chan Karate Kid is better than the original? Well, I do love the old. You're not the only one, because I agree as well. Yeah, and I want to be very careful. I'm not trying to say that the new one with Jaden Smith is necessarily better than the original. I'm just saying I like it more. I personally find it a better movie than the original. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the original and everything I do. Nothing will replace Pat Morita. All right? Nothing will ever replace him. But yeah, that Jackie Chan, Jaden Smith one was actually better than it had any business being. Like, that movie should have been a train wreck. And it was much better than it had any business being. And yeah, I get some some angry looks at me sometimes when I say that, but I actually think the remake of Karate Kid was better than the original. I still like it. I'm not crapping on the original. I like the original very much. I have a lot of fond memories watching that movie growing up. But yeah, I actually think this one, the one with Jackie Chan, deserves a lot of credit, because I thought it was pretty solid, pretty damn it. And I think Taraji P. Henson's in that too, isn't she? Anyway, it's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, so it looks like you and me, Ben. You and me and Ben might be the only ones in that boat. All right, next up, Ben follows that up with, old shows like Dark Angel, that old comedy horror Idle Hands, plus Sin City, and yes, even the original Fantastic Four. I so used to have a crush on Jessica Alba in movies. Well, why not? Seriously, what is there about Jessica Alba not to have a crush on? She comes across as super sweet, really nice. She's got a very fun kind of personality. She's incredibly beautiful. I mean, honestly, what is there not to have a crush on with Jessica Alba? I mean, you're not alone, Ben, and this isn't like the Karate Kid remake thing where you and I are alone in that. Everybody has had a crush on Jessica Alba. Every man, woman, and child on this planet has had a crush to one degree or another on Jessica Alba. I mean, there's just nothing not to love about it. Look, I don't think she's the greatest actress in the world. Never have. But she seems incredibly adorable, super nice, fun. She's got this magnetic personality, and she's incredibly beautiful. So of course every man, woman, and child on this planet has had a crush on Jessica Alba at one point or another. I contend that, Your Honor. I rest my case. Okay, next up, Adamus95 writes, the ending in Boy in the Striped... The ending of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, oh my God. Yeah, oh my God is right. I mean, and thank you for making me relive that horrible memory. The movie's brilliant. It's brilliant. And if I always say movies are supposed to be experiential experiences, right? They're supposed to be experiential events. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is an emotional tornado. And the ending of the film, I think that the one kid's name was Bruno, I'm forgetting the other kid's name. As they hold hands, I mean, look, some movies need to remind us sometimes of just how crappy the human race can be. That's one of them. And my God, the ending of, I'm not going to give away the ending, but the ending of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is like, ugh. It's an emotional truck that hits you in the face. Donaldo Martinez writes, A-list would have been nice to have back in the early 2000s when Lord of the Rings came out. Saw each film 10 times in theaters. Oh man, I was right there with you, dude. I remember I went to see the first Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, at the Cineplex Silver City in Ancaster, Ontario, in the Meadowlands. That was my theater of choice. I went to more movies there than any other movie theater in the world, and I was there all the time. And I even remember I was living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and when The Phantom Menace was coming out, the new Star Wars movie was coming out, I drove 2,000 miles across the country so I can go and watch it in that movie theater. And anyway, that's a movie theater I went and saw Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring with. And I believe, remember we've been talking lately about how, movies are shared experiences. I even remember who I was with. I was with a friend of mine. She was the violinist in my band. Her name was Milana Spolstra. And I went and saw Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring with Milana Spolstra. Because these big movies, I remember the people I saw them with. And a lot of us do, because again, movies are shared experiences and we remember the people that we're with. But anyway, I instantly, like a lot of you guys, I instantly fell in love because I grew up reading Lord of the Rings and particularly The Hobbit. I even like The Hobbit as a book more than the Lord of the Rings books. But I remember the first time you saw the Shire. Man, you know how that one scene in Ratatouille when I think it's voiced by the food critic, I believe it was voiced by Peter O'Toole, eats the first bite and then vroom, he's transported to his childhood and blah, blah. I remember sitting in that theater saying, well, I hope they don't screw this up. And we see the Shire for the first time. Vroom, I was teleported there. I was like, boom, boom, instantly I was there in the Shire and it looked and felt and smelt everything like I always imagined. I was just taken right into it, And like everybody else in the world, I instantly fell in love with the film, loved the sequel, loved the rounding out of the trilogy, which won more Academy Awards than any other film no other film in history ever won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. And yeah, A-list would have been handy. I spent a lot of money going to see those Lord of the Rings fans, or going to see those Lord of the Rings films, man. An awful lot of film. I think we all did. All right. Ben Rayner writes, I liked Fan 4, I think you mean Fantastic Four, 2005, better than Fantastic Four 2015. 2015 felt boring and dull to me, and 2005 was at least entertaining to me. Well, and that's why all film's subjective, Ben. I'm going to disagree with you. But my opinion's no more valid than yours. But I'll disagree. I actually, seriously, I thought the first half of the first act to almost the first half of the 2015 Fantastic Four was actually pretty good. Look, because I remember I went to go see, with a lot of people, we went to go see the first press screening of Fantastic Four, the 2015 one, on the Fox lot. So I was there. I love going to the Fox lot, actually. It's a really cool place. But anyway, was on the Fox lot, and we heard all the drama. They held off the press screenings till like 2 days before the movie released. Massive red flag in the air on that. We all expected this movie to be an absolute train wreck. Absolute train wreck is what we were expecting out of that movie. And then the movie starts, and it gets about 1/3 into it. And I think Christian Harloff and I were sitting beside each other. And we get about, if we just finish off the first act, right? We're getting about 1/3 into the movie. And like, I remember, like, I believe it was Christian and I looked at each other, I was like, this isn't bad. I mean, it wasn't blowing our socks off. It's like, this movie ain't bad so far. This is actually pretty good. This is pretty good. Let's see where, all right. But then once you get past the halfway mark, it all starts to go to hell, unfortunately. And, you know, we can talk about whose fault that was, whatever. The bottom line is it ended up being a bad movie. But it started off with promise. And I'll say this, that first half of, I believe, the Fantastic Four in 2015 was better than anything we got out of the other two Fantastic Four movies. I believe that. I believe the first act to first half of the 2015 movie was better than anything we got out of the other two movies. But now you feel differently. And again, your opinion is no less valid than mine. The film's subjective, but that's just kind of how I see it. But yeah, I mean, look, you're not going to hear me say that this Fantastic Four movie, the 2015 version, was a good film. It was not. It was absolutely not. But, you know, it wasn't the unabashed train wreck that it could have been and that some people make it out to be. I think a lot of people forget the first half of that film's not bad. It's not a bad little bit of setup, and the development's pretty good up to a point, and then it kind of comes off the rails. Let's see. Jared Vester writes, have you ever had the chance to watch Ozark on Netflix with Jason Bateman? I have. Well, let me put a little asterisk beside that. I saw 4 episodes. Look, my wife and I love Jason Bateman, and we like a lot of Netflix shows. Not a lot of Netflix movies, but a lot of Netflix shows. So we were very excited about Ozark, and I thought it was awful. I know, and it's funny because I know a lot of people love it. I thought it was like painful. I felt like it was pulling teeth watching that thing. Now, I don't know if it incredibly picked up after episode 4 or anything like that. I just know that the show lost me after 4 episodes. So maybe it got a lot better, whatever. But yeah, just didn't work for me, unfortunately, Jared. All right, Manuel Fernandez writes, regarding his character in both the Clone Wars series and episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, what are your thoughts on General Grievous? Not much, to be honest. I always thought the character was kind of lame, to be honest. For everything from the design of the character, to the voice of the character, to the breathing of the character, to the fact that it had this little heart bumping in there, the fact that he was basically a robot with a smoker's cough. There was just really nothing about the General Grievous character other than the fact that he was clearly a threat to even Jedi. That was cool. The fact that they had a character that was clearly a threat to even Jedi, that was intriguing. Other than that, I was never big on the General Grievous character. There's things they could have done with him, I suppose. But at the end of the day, yeah, I never got into him. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, did you like Change Up with Bateman and Reynolds? Speaking of Jason Bateman, you know what? It's a lame little I think it came out like 2011, 2012, something like that. It's a lame little comedy, but it had laughs. You know, that's one of the things we talk about all the time, right? Like, a horror movie can be bad in all sorts of ways. If it gives you chills and gives you scares, you pretty much will give it a pass on everything else it does wrong. Because that's the main thing that a horror movie's trying to do. Give you chills, give you scares. And if it can do that, you're willing to forgive an awful lot of mistakes. Comedies, you know what? You can have lame character development, you can have a lame narrative, you can do a lot of things wrong in a comedy. But if you make me laugh, if you make the audience laugh, the audience will forgive a lot of the other big mistakes you make. And for me, the Change Up kind of falls under that category. It was a bad movie in many, many, many ways. But at the end of the day, when I walked out of the theater, I have to admit, most of the time I was watching the movie, I was at least chuckling. And lame, yep. Cheesy, yep. Kind of cringy in parts, yep. Did it make a lot of sense? Nope. But I giggled a lot. I laughed a lot. So even though I came out going, yeah, there was bad in many ways, I was still smiling. I had enjoyed myself. So I'm not going to come out and say that The Change Up is a good movie, but I will confess I enjoyed it. I had fun because it made me laugh. And The Change Up is a great example of that whole motif about comedy as a genre that you can get away with a lot if you get laughs. You know, things like dramas, thrillers, period pieces, a lot of other genres, you don't get that flexibility. Like, you have to do a number of things well to create an overall good movie experience for somebody. The horror genre and the comedy are a little bit unique amongst all their cousin genres in the sense that really, if you're doing this genre, there's only one thing you really got to get right to make the audience feel like they had a good time. And yeah, the change up is a beneficiary of that motif, I suppose. All right, Jared Vester writes, save one, get rid of one. Jack and Jill or After Earth. I know this decision must be hard for you. They should both be destroyed in eternal fire. You know what? Okay, I'll say this. First of all, Jack and Jill, say it right up front. Get rid of Jack and Jill, save After Earth. And the reason I'll say save After Earth is this. Is it a good movie? No. But I'll say this. To me, there is at least some redeeming qualities in After Earth. There are at least some redeeming qualities in that movie. Is it a good movie? No. Did I dislike that movie? Yes. But I don't think it was a dumpster fire. I think there were a few elements in that film. And you know what? Jaden Smith wasn't that bad in it. Some of the visual effects were pretty aggressive. Like, they tried some pretty tricky stuff. I mean, not all the visual effects look great, but they tried some very, very tricky stuff from a visual effects perspective in that. And I will say, at least for that movie, I can honestly say there were some redemptive qualities. Where with Jack and Jill, no, you're right. That's just got to burn in eternal fire. So I'd rather not keep either of them. But if I got to choose between the two, it's a very easy decision for me, actually. I'll keep After Earth and get rid of Jack and Jill. All right. James Welsh writes, Roma is being called one of Quran's best films and potential best picture. Do you think it ended up on Netflix? Is because no studio wanted to take the risk on a black and white film in Spanish. Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. So for those of you who don't know, Alfonso Cuarón has got a new film coming out. It just played at the Telluride Film Festival to rave reviews. There are some outlets right now that they don't want to get ahead of themselves, but are saying this is a film that's got Best Picture nomination potential. And it's going to be distributed on Netflix. Which makes me excited to see it, because right now my mindset is every film that originates on Netflix sucks. With a very few exceptions. So I'm hoping this one could be something that starts to change that around. But it's not that studios weren't willing to take a risk on it. There is no risk. This movie would have flopped in theaters. There's no risk. Risk implies there was a chance for big success. There was no chance for success here. A black and white film in Spanish. Zero chance for success. It would find an audience, yes. An audience big enough to justify a $30 million marketing campaign, the expense of distributing it to 2,000 theaters, all that kind of stuff. Nope. No way. This was a film nobody would have gone to see. It may be one of the best films of the year, but nobody's going to go see a black and white film, and no one's going to go see a foreign language film, and ain't nobody going to go see a foreign language film in black and white. And again, when I say no one, I'm using hyperbole. Obviously, there are some people that would appeal to, for sure. But a big enough audience to justify a studio picking it up and taking on the expense of distributing it and marketing it and all that kind of stuff? Nah. So I'll say no, it wasn't a risk, because a risk implies there was a chance for success. There was no chance for success here. This was a movie that never would have made any money. The only chance it had was to go direct to Netflix. And maybe that's where Netflix's niche may come. From films that are truly exceptional, yet don't really have a lot of market appeal. I mean, maybe that's Netflix's angle that they could go for moving forward. Like, if they could start to develop, if they could change right now this reputation that they have, that they just pick up any old garbage. And really, right now, that's what Netflix does. They pick up any old garbage and put it on and call it a Netflix original. But if Netflix could change that narrative, say, really become known as that place, you know what? Netflix is a place that picks up these diamonds of movies, that, realistically speaking, probably wouldn't have found a life in the open market, out in theaters. Probably wouldn't have found an audience there. But here, it's a much more limited financial risk. It can have a life here, and then people can discover it and enjoy it. Maybe that's Netflix's angle that they could take with other films as well. But absolutely, James, the notion about the reason this film ends up in Netflix is because no studio would have touched it. No studio would have touched it because nobody wanted to. They would have lost money. I guarantee you, if it's as good as they're saying it is, I bet you every studio would have loved to have picked it up. I guarantee you every studio had certain executives in their studios arguing that they should pick it up. But at the end of the day, smarter heads prevailed, saying, as much as we love this film, we can't pick this up because we'll lose money. And then we'll lose jobs. So it's absolutely connected. No doubt in my mind about that whatsoever. Subtle McShave writes, Max von Sydow has done iconic roles since the 1950s. Do you think he should get an honorary Oscar before he'll be a part in the In Memoriam segment? I don't think he will. And honestly, look, I revere him as much as anybody else. Has he had the career to give an honorary, something they only give out one a year to? One a year. Is he that next recipient? I don't know. I mean, especially considering, like, the Academy is mostly a North American organization, right? A lot of Max's best stuff has not been North American stuff, right? Like, whether you go back to even like a classic like Seventh Seal and things like that. What has he been the lead main face of for a lot of North American film? Actually, not much. Look, let me put it this way. If somebody told me tomorrow that the Academy was going to honor Max with a Lifetime Achievement Award, I would stand up and cheer. But I don't think that's what they're going to do, and I understand why they probably wouldn't. So, yeah, I'm going to guess we're not going to see him get... This is just a guess, but I'm just guessing we're not going to see him get an honorary Oscar before we see him... hopefully it's still many years from now that we see him in Memoriam. All right, Dim Sum 05 writes, did you see Searching? No, actually, I talked about that on the John Campea show earlier today. Ann and I, we were going to go see Searching this weekend. And then we thought maybe we'll go see it yesterday afternoon, being Sunday, because it's Sunday, right? But we decided, we're just hungry and we're tired. So we went out to go eat. And then we decided, and Sunday night is our Dungeons and Dragons night. That's the night our group comes over and we play Dungeons and Dragons on Sunday night. And Ann's our dungeon master, as a matter of fact. So we just kind of went, we were going to go see it and we wanted to, but we were both tired. It's like, we both could just use a nap before we played D&D. And it's Sunday. Sundays are made for naps, man. So we went out, had this big Chinese meal at one of the best Chinese places in Los Angeles. It's called Mama Lou's. It's unbelievable. Anyway. And it knocked us out. So we came home and slept for the afternoon. And then we played some D&D in the evening. So nope, still haven't seen Searching. Got to get around to seeing it, though. Dim Sum follows it up with, regarding Batista, cancel the project. Sue Batista for damages. Have him pay for having a big mouth and damaging the movie and Disney, even though he's great. Well, okay, so where this is coming from is earlier today on the John Campea show, we talked about the Dave Batista situation. Dave Batista has now come right out in interviews. I don't even think I want to work for Disney anymore. Now, compile that on with, an earlier comment he made about a month ago saying, I find it nauseating to work with Disney right now because they're a company that empowers like neo-Nazi online fascists. I find it's nauseating was the word he used to work with them. Dave Batista has been basically begging Disney to let him out of his contract. He's done everything except get on TV, get down on his hands and knees, and say, Disney, please release me from my contract. Please. He's been begging. But I don't know that Disney can do that. Because if you let him out of his contract, what kind of precedent is that? Because if you let him out of his contract now, basically what you're saying is to every actor who ever signs a contract with you to say, hey, if you ever just want out of your contract, just start complaining on Twitter and we'll let you out. Look, we're doing it for Dave Batista. Just start complaining and we'll let you out. Like, you got to be very aware of that. And it's creating a problem for them. Now, so the big question earlier today was, what do you do if you're Disney? Do you just keep him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Well, now you know you got a guy starring in the movie and everybody knows he doesn't even want to be there. That's bad. Do you let him out of the contract? Well, then if you do, you're just sending up a flare in the air telling all your talent, hey, anybody, you don't have to honor your contracts. If you want out, just complain about us on Twitter and we'll let you out. You can't set that precedent either. So what do? So Dim Sum is saying, cancel the project, cancel Guardians of the Galaxy 3, sue Batista for damages, have him pay for having a big mouth and damaging the movie in Disney, even though he's great. Well, see, the thing, though, is, Dim Sum, there's nothing you could sue him over. There's nothing you could sue Dave Batista over. He has not done anything in violation of any agreement. He has not done anything in violation of any rule or any law. He has expressed his opinion and his displeasure on something. There's no law against that. There's no law. And, he hasn't disparaged his films. And I'm sure there's something in the contracts about disparaging the films that you're in because that would hurt business. Having the star of a movie disparage your film when it's in theaters, but he has never disparaged any of the films. He's never disparaged the MCU. He's been very smart about this. He has strictly said, I don't want to work for these people. And there ain't nothing illegal or wrong about that. You couldn't sue him. And even if you could sue him, he doesn't have $100 million. Like, don't get me wrong, Dave Batista has enough money to live fairly comfortable the rest of his life, and probably that his kids could live fairly comfortable. But he doesn't have $100 million. So what are you going to sue him for? You're going to sue him for a couple $1 million? You're going to give up Guardians of the Galaxy 3 for a couple $1 million? I don't think so. So it's a rock and a hard place. Disney's in a very tough spot. They're in a very, very tough spot. And that's why that was the topic of today's question of the day on the John Campea Show. What do you think Disney should do? If you're running Disney, what do you do? Do you force him to stay in the movie? That's going to have some bad things come along with it. Do you let him out? That sets a bad precedent. And you're basically opening the floodgates for anybody you got a contract with to say, I don't want to be in these movies anymore. I'll just complain about them on Twitter and they'll let me out because that's what they do. Like, it's a tough situation. So, and I don't believe this conversation's over yet. I really don't. Dead Dog Productions writes, what is your opinion on outdoor cinemas? I live in Greece and we have many of them during the summer. I think they're great. Outdoor cinema is a great fun event. Now, there's not a lot of that. Like in Canada, we had drive-in theaters. I'm sure there are still drive-in theaters around the US as well. Not a lot of them. They're a dying thing. In Los Angeles, I just talked about this a little bit on the show this morning too. In Los Angeles, there's the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and yes, it's a cemetery, but they do summer screenings there. They do movie series outside at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and I've gone to a couple of it. It's a pretty fun experience. It's a really cool experience. Outdoor cinema is great. I will say this though, you are never going to get your best sound or best picture at an outdoor cinema. I mean, that's just because in a theater, you can control all the variables. You control the light exactly. You control the sound exactly. You can control the environment to give the best visual and audio presentation. Outdoor, you're never going to get the best picture. You're never going to get the best sound. What you do get is other variables that you can't get in an indoor thing, like being outside, either in a lawn chair or a big picnic blanket, laying down, sipping a glass of wine while watching some. I mean, it's fun. Actually, the last one I did, Ann and I went to this one thing. I can't remember the name of the location, but it's right in Hollywood, and they call it the Rooftop Cinema. And during the summer, they play a bunch of movies on this rooftop, and they put out these big kind of like pool recliner chairs, and everybody just goes up there. And what was the one we went to last year? It was Ghostbusters. They were playing the original Ghostbusters, and it was a lot of fun. There's just something intangible. The benefits you get of this, the atmosphere, the fun, it's great. There are trade-offs. You don't get the best picture, you don't get the best sound, so it's not the best viewing experience. But you do get some pretty cool fun, too, at the same time. So, yeah, every once in a while, look, I would never go to an outdoor theater as my main regular go-to movie theater. But every couple of months, going to a fun outdoor screening, it's great. It's great. So if you guys get the opportunity to do that, I would highly encourage you to do it. All right, Murray Reich writes, There's a sale at the mall, MAUL. Everything is half off. Wah, wah, ba, 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 ba. All right, Murray follows it up with, did you see the Venom video dubbed by Samuel L. Jackson? It's on Instagram. I don't know if it's the one you're talking about. I did see a video on YouTube it was that one scene from the trailer where Venom's got the would-be robber in the convenience store. And, you know, the scene in the trailer is going to be, first I'm going to eat your arms and your legs, and you're going to be this armless, legless turd, like a turd in the wind or something like that, right? But instead what they did was they took out the dialogue and they put in Samuel L. Jackson's dialogue from that scene in Pulp Fiction saying, do you know what Marcellus looks like? Say what? I dare you to say what one more time. I double dare you. Anyway, and it just overdubs that. If that's what you're talking about, yes, I have seen it. If you're talking about something else that maybe is only on Instagram, then no, I haven't seen that yet, and I probably would like to. If it is something different than what I've explained, can you do me a favor, Murray? Email me, john@thejohncampeashow.com. Email me a link to what it is you're talking about so I can see it, because I'd be curious to see that. Let's see. Odile Jones writes, could James Gunn be the new Flash director Kiersey Clemens hinted at? Okay, there's a whole lot of boom in that question. Okay, first of all, some of you might be going, wait a minute, a new director for Flash? What are you talking about? So here's the thing. We talked about this on the John Campea show the other day. Kiersey Clemens, who has been cast to play Iris in the Flash movie, she was interviewed on the red carpet for another project, and she confirmed a couple of things. Number one, there is no shooting date right now for a Flash movie. Number two, it is officially been delayed because they were hoping to start shooting it. They had tentatively planned to start shooting in 2018. Now they don't know. And she says, here's hoping we shoot in 2019. She said, fingers crossed. So they don't even know for sure if they're shooting it in 2019. The most intriguing thing about that interview was, now understand, they had announced a few months ago that they got the guys who directed Tag, I believe, are going to be directing the Flash movie. I can't remember their names, but these two guys, they're going to be directing the Flash movie. And that was confirmed a couple of months ago. Well, in this interview, she says something along the lines of, I can't even talk about who our director is. Our director, singular. I can't even talk about our director and who he is, but maybe I can tell you something later on. It's like, wait a minute, time out. I thought you had hired, I thought it was public. You made it official months ago that Warner Brothers had these two guys. It's official. These two guys are directing the Flash movie. Yay! And now you're talking about, I can't even talk about who the director is. Maybe we can sometime soon. I can't say too much. So, did you lose another set of directors again? So, if that's what she's saying, and we don't know that for certain, let's keep that in mind, we do not know that for certain. Why you would say, I can't talk about who our director is, when you already announced who the director was months ago, and now you're saying director singular? I mean, that obviously raises flags, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything officially, or 100%. But, if they have lost their director, and if they've gone out and gotten another director, oh my God, what if it is James Gunn? I mean, because it's public knowledge, the reports went out in all the major trades the other day that every other studio has been lining up to pitch offers to James Gunn. And we know, according to the Hollywood Reporter, that Warner Brothers was one of those companies that are just getting in line to offer projects to James Gunn. What if one of those is Flash and the Flash movie? Look, I'm not saying that's the case whatsoever, but let's entertain the idea for a second, just for the sake of argument. That would explain why Warner Brothers goes, oh, wait, we could get a James Gunn to direct Flash? Okay, guys, we know we said you were our directors, but we're going to move you out because we're going to make an offer to this guy. And if he's accepted it now, if he's got his separation agreement with Disney all done, they could have made him the offer and he could have accepted it now. It's a stretch. It's absolutely a stretch, but it is an intriguing possibility. Let's keep our eyes on and see what happens. Julius Goodwin writes, Still watching, speaking of Flash, still watching Flash on Netflix, loving it, but stupid choices of Flash and others. Example, Flashpoint. Drive me insane. Any other shows you recommend? Honestly, Julius, I don't know what you're saying. When you say stupid choices of Flash and others. Stupid choice of cast? Stupid choice of something they do? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. But any other shows I recommend trying out. There were a couple of brand new superhero shows even that came out in this past year that I think are very solid. 3 in particular. One honorable mention is Krypton. Not as good as these 3 I'm about to mention, but not bad, actually. Better than I thought it would be. So Krypton might be one you want to check out. The 3 I want to recommend, one is a CW show, Black Lightning. Way better than I thought it would be. I really like that show. Then one on Fox, which is The Gifted, which is kind of like a loose X-Men universe kind of TV show. I'm really liking that show. And then one is on Hulu, and it's The Runaways. I am loving that show. So I would suggest giving those 3 a shot, and maybe even Krypton, because Krypton ain't bad either. Let's see. Thunder Knight writes, like yourself, I was a big WWE fan, but over the past few years, I've been watching less and less, mainly due to the poor booking of their talents. When did you start watching less and less, and what caused it? I don't think anything caused it, to be honest. Like nowadays, I watch maybe 2 events a year. I'll watch wrestling, because all of my friends, we get together, we watch WrestleMania, and maybe a SummerSlam, or maybe, one of the other big pay-per-views, something like that. But yeah, maybe once or twice a year, I'll watch wrestling now. Anyway. And it's funny, because every time I watch it, it's like, I have no idea who any of these people are. Like, I like, who are some people that still show up there and still wrestle? It's like, okay, Kofi's there. Okay, great. Know him. Undertaker still shows up once in a while. Triple H still shows up once in a while. Who are some of the other ones that still... I mean, it's just a lot of faces I don't recognize, and I just simply don't know. You know what I'm saying? And Brock is still there, obviously. But I don't think there was any one thing in particular that made me stop watching. I think I just weaned off of it. I think part of it was I moved away from, like, I was living in Saskatoon for like 7 years. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I was living there for about 7 years, and I had some friends there, and I'd go every Monday night. We'd go over to my buddy's house, and we'd watch Monday Night Raw, and then I moved away from there. And I think moving away from there is really kind of what I realized, that I was still watching it just because it was fun to watch it with my friends. And when I didn't have those friends there to watch it with, I realized I wasn't really all that interested in watching it on my own anymore. And I just gradually weaned off it. So I don't think there was any one thing that wrestling did that turned me off of it. I just think I just gradually weaned off of it. But I still get a big kick out of watching the WrestleManias and things like that. I still do. ZOMG Ruler writes, you say women have always asked you out. Explain. Yeah, not much to explain. So basically, most of the relationships I've been in my life were as a result of the girl asking me out first. Why? It's simple. Because when it comes to women, I am a gutless coward and always have been. It's just that simple. I'd like to tell you it's because I'm more man than any other man around. I am the supreme alpha, and women just naturally flock to me, but the reality is much less spectacular. The reality is, when it comes to women, I am petrified. I am a gutless coward. I always have been. Always have been. So, a lot of the relationships, I'm not going to say every single one, but a lot of the relationships in my life have been instigated by the woman. I mean, Anne, she instigated our relationship. She's the one who reached out to me. And I'm really glad she did. But, I mean, it's just that I'm just too gutless of a coward when it comes to women to do that. So, yeah, there you go. So that's why. It's not because, oh, I'm the ultimate alpha and women just... No. Make no mistake, that is not the case. It's just the case that any relationship that I could possibly be in my life would have to be pretty much all the time instigated by the girl, because I was just they scared me to death. You know who I am? I am Stephen Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin. You know? That he's just too terrified to even talk. So that was me for a lot of my life, at any rate. Daily 1611, where'd it go? Big jump. There we go. Daily 1611 writes, better Emily Blunt movie, Sicario or A Quiet Place? Oh, that's easy, Quiet Place. Yeah. I thought Sicario was good. I like Sicario, but I did not think it was as great as a lot of other people did. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Thumbs up. Like it. Quiet Place is still the best movie of the year, in my opinion. So that makes that easy. As a matter of fact, I would even put like Edge of Tomorrow, I would put above Sicario as well. But if you're just going to give me those two, I'm going to go Quiet Place all day, every day, man. Quiet Place all day, every day. I really didn't like the Sicario sequel, Day of the Soldado. I thought that movie was just flat out bad. I like Sicario, but not Day of the Soldado, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm going to take Quiet Place in that one. Daily 1611 follows it up with, which Lucifer do you prefer, Lucifer or Supernatural? Well, they're really two very different characters. Like, they both follow the whole traditional mythos of Satan up to the point that they were God's favorite angel that for one reason or another fell. But that's where the similarities end, right? The Lucifer in Supernatural is more the embodiment of the stereotypical Lucifer. Evil, hates humanity, wants to see humanity destroyed, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Very cool character in Supernatural, but he's really more close to the traditional mythology of the devil there. Lucifer in the TV show Lucifer, completely different ballgame. Totally goes against all the traditional mythologies surrounding Lucifer and Satan and all that kind of stuff. He's a misunderstood character. Yes, he rebelled against his dad, and his dad casting him out, the show kind of sets up was kind of like loving parenting or whatever. And Lucifer, I mean, it's a different kind of thing. So they are such radically different characters. Not to mention, one is a secondary character in a show, Supernatural, whereas in Lucifer, he is the title character. So it's very, very difficult to compare the two. So if I had to go, look, if I'm forced to do it, and if I had to go on a limb, fine, I'll say Lucifer from Lucifer is my favorite one. But I certainly love the Lucifer in Supernatural as well. It's just that they're so radically different characters and they play radically different roles in their respective shows that it's kind of hard to compare, apples to spaceships. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's see. Javier Riaz 405 writes, would you like to see the Savage Lands and X-Men movies with Sauron and Khazar, or would you rather see Mojo in the Mojoverse? Neither, to be honest with you. I think they're both too ridiculous for the big screen. I do. Like, Savage Land is interesting. Some of the best Savage Land stuff had to do with Magneto. So for those of you who don't know anything about it, Savage Land is kind of like, it's this isolated place, I believe, like off Antarctica or something like that aliens created kind of like as a animal sanctuary for like the prehistoric age, right? And there have been a number of X-Men stories and others that have taken place in the South. There's one actually very predominant Spider-Man story that took place there as well, but long story anyway. Mojo, there's Mojo World, the Mojoverse. It's a pocket universe kind of with these creatures that don't have spines. And anyway, honestly, they're great. They make the for background of some great comic book stories. I don't think either of them translate well to the big screen. I think they come across as just too silly. So while they're great in the comics, and I'll read them all day, I don't think either of them. So I'm going to take neither. That's going to be my option on that one, is neither. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, I'm still sad that Back to the Future ride is gone at Universal. I think it was gone before I started going. So I never had the Back to the Future ride. I think even though I lived in LA for a long time, it was a long time before I went to Universal Hollywood theme park. And it's great. Ann and I love it now. We have like annual passes. But I think it was gone before I even got there, so I can't even have a chance to miss it. Let's see. Jedi Lori writes, thoughts on argument that Luke had changed from Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi into a positive hero wanting to save Vader. Then in The Last Jedi, that growth from Return of the Jedi was gone. Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. No, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of Star Wars. Okay, let's look at the Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker. The Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi had realized in his confrontation, like even in Empire Strikes Back, it starts in Empire Strikes Back, when Vader refuses to kill him, and then Luke is on the Millennium Falcon getting away from Bespin, right? Getting away from Cloud City. And he's laying there, and Vader calls out to Luke, right? And Luke hears him. And what does Luke do? Get up, goes, screw off, Vader! Nah! No. He sits up and goes, Father. He sits up and goes, Father. So I would propose that as early as the ending of Empire Strikes Back, Luke realized this Dark Lord of the Sith, there's still good in him. There's still, I've seen it. I've sensed it. I've seen it. He refused to destroy me when he had the chance, and he reached out to me, and I can feel the good in him. That was as early as Empire Strikes Back. Now let's move into Return of the Jedi. What everybody forgets about is Luke was this close to killing Vader. Luke was this close to killing Vader. He snapped, he started going crazy, bam, 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 cut off Vader's hands, and Vader is now laying there on the ground going, with one stubby hand, so, and Luke's got his lightsaber up, and he's ready to kill him. Then he gathered himself, and that was his moment. He gathered himself. He realized, no, I'm giving in to fear. I'm giving in to anger, particularly fear. Fear is a big theme in Star Wars, like going right to the prequels, fear. You know, as Yoda would say, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate, blah, 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 and on and on. Fear is a huge thing. And he was realizing, as Luke was saying, if you won't turn, perhaps your sister will. So you have a sister. And Luke, in fear, now suddenly he's afraid for Leia. Boom, boom, and he came this close to killing Vader. He was standing above him, saber above his head, ready to strike him down and kill him. And then he gathered himself, threw his lightsaber away, said, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, and decides not to do it. That's the Luke Skywalker we had in Return of the Jedi. Now let's fast forward. We fast forward now, and this is why I say the people who say to me, they changed Luke in The Last Jedi. Look, I have no problem if you hate The Last Jedi. I have my issues with it too. So I have no problem if you hate The Last Jedi. But I will always take issue with anybody who says to me, they changed Luke. Then I will say to you, then you don't know anything about Luke. If you think they changed Luke, you simply fundamentally have either never seen Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, or you just don't understand Star Wars. See, here's the thing. What we see in The Last Jedi is Luke, who has now been confronted and realizes this swelling tidal wave of the dark side of the Force in his own nephew. And knowing that the last time this happened, billions were murdered across the galaxy. Not one person, not a family of people, not 50 people, not 100 people, not 1,000 people, not a neighborhood, not a city, not a state, not a country, not one planet, but billions across the galaxy ended up getting slaughtered and murdered, all because nobody stopped his dad. And now he's confronted with, in the body of his own nephew, in the person of his own nephew, he's sensing that same darkness again. And he has the struggle. It's the fear. The same fear he had in Return of the Jedi was back. Fear that if I don't do something, billions will die. If I don't do something. It's the Empire all over again. Unless I stop this here and now. And just like in Return of the Jedi, where Luke momentarily gave into that fear and was gripped by that fear and was this close to killing his own dad, he found himself in that exact same situation with his own nephew. Faced with this insurmountable fear of what could happen to the galaxy if he lets this happen, and he goes into his nephew's room, raises the lightsaber above his head, just like in Return of the Jedi, and then, also just like in Return of the Jedi, the same Luke Skywalker caught himself, lowered his weapon, and realizing, no, I can't do this. Just like Return of the Jedi. He was faced with that same fear, actually even a bigger fear this time, because Vader was already around. Now he's looking at a new Vader. Gonna kill billions unless I do something right now. Faced with that fear, he momentarily gave into it like he did in Return of the Jedi, but then like in Return of the Jedi, he caught himself, thought better of it, recomposed himself, and lowered his weapon. It's the same Luke Skywalker, folks, in The Last Jedi, as it is in Return of the Jedi, as it is in Empire Strikes Back. Now, that doesn't mean you need to like The Last Jedi. Just because it's the same Luke, that doesn't mean it's a good movie. I happen to like it. I know a lot of people that don't. Nothing wrong with that. But it's the same Luke. It's absolutely 100% the same Luke. Anyway, that's just kind of my outlook on it. All right. Murray Reich writes, Lando, everything you've heard about me is true. Han, it says right here you're a bitch. I don't know if you got that from somewhere else. That's pretty funny. I like that. I remember thinking something like about that. It's like, you want to be careful. Like watching Solo and Lando says that line, everything you've heard about me is true. It's like, I don't know, you're kind of opening yourself up there a little bit because you don't know what it is he's heard. All right, Murray Reich writes, I know it's only 4 months away, but we only got one small teaser for Mary Poppins Returns that came out 6 months ago. Do you think it's already time? Yeah, I think it's time for a new one. I honestly think a new Mary Poppins trailer is probably any day now. I really do. I would honestly be surprised. I will legitimately be surprised if we don't have a new Mary Poppins trailer within the next 2 weeks. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm just saying I'd be surprised if we don't. Because we're right in that window now where I feel like we're going to get another one dropped here pretty soon. Like, all the big movies have come out and played. They've had their run. Now's a good time to start pumping and promoting. Because, like, it's not just that. It's other late December Christmas movies, right? We're pretty much due for a new Mortal Engines trailer. We are pretty much due for a second Aquaman trailer. We are absolutely due for a Holmes and Watson trailer. We are absolutely due for a new Bumblebee trailer. And we're due for a new look at Mary Poppins. And so I think all those are going to be coming pretty damn soon. So I agree with you on that. All right. MDB3000 writes, I saw an interview where Al Pacino said John Cazale is Hollywood's biggest what-if stories. Had to argue when you look at his body, or hard to argue when you look at his body, his work. Honestly, I don't know who we're talking about. Honestly, I could sit here and pretend that I did, but I don't. So I'll have to look that up, and maybe we can talk about it another time, but I don't know what it is he's talking about. Hardy Buck writes, Captain America's original costume from the first Avenger is my favorite costume of the MCU. Will we ever see it one more time on the big screen? Well, I mean, if you believe... in the first Avenger. Oh, that one where well, you know what's funny? After we got a very different Captain America costume in the first Avengers movie, right? In Avengers, we got a very different looking Captain. I feel like, and maybe I'm the only one, but it seems like to me that every film since Avengers, the costume has gradually, little bit by little bit, been starting to go back to look more and more like the original costume. And I think in Winter Soldier, at one point, he did put it on. But I feel like gradually more and more, it's gone back to feeling more like that original costume. So I don't know if we'll ever actually see it again, but it was good. I mean, that was a good costume. It really was a good costume, so I have to keep our eyes open for that. Micah T writes, I rewatched Doctor Strange recently, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I remembered. I think his role in Infinity War has made me like the character even more. You know what's funny, Micah T? That's actually a sign of just how good Infinity War was, because, number one, I completely agree with you. Because I also watched Doctor Strange again. I think it just happened to be on TBS or something, so I'm like, I'll watch it. And I watched it again after Infinity War. And I had an even bigger, like, I liked it a lot the first time I saw it. Like, I've always liked that movie. I think the movie's great. But I had an even bigger appreciation for the movie, and more specifically, the character. I had even more appreciation for the character and the development of the character having watched Infinity War, right? But the funny thing is, I don't think it's just the Captain, or I don't think it's just the Doctor Strange character that's having that. We've heard a lot of people saying the same thing about Thor, right? Now, granted, Thor was coming off Thor Ragnarok, which started to get a lot of people back on board with Thor. But then you had Thor, who, other than Thanos, is the most important character. I mean, at the end of the day, Avengers Infinity War is about Thor. It's about Thanos and Thor. At the end of the day, that's who that movie's about. And I remember I mentioned this, but one of the coolest things said in the director's commentary of Avengers Infinity War was when the Russos said, during the scene when Thor doesn't hit him in the head, he hits him in the chest. The Russo brothers, the directors of the film, said this, and I thought it was like, poof, and they were totally right. And here's what they said. They said, had that axe hit Thanos in the head instead of the chest, Avengers Infinity War is a Thor movie. Think about that. If that axe hits Thanos in the head instead of the chest, the Russo brothers say, then Infinity War is actually a Thor movie. But by hitting him in the chest instead of the head, it's a Thanos movie. Because really, when you look at it, this movie is about Thanos and Thor. The movie starts with Thanos and Thor, it ends with Thanos and Thor, and it begins with them, the two of them together, and then they divide and they have their individual storylines going about, and it's all building up to when they come together again for their final confrontation. And had that axe hit him in the head, and the good guys won, and Thor, say, prevailed and won the day, the perception of the film, according to the Russos, would be that it was a Thor movie. And my mind was like, boom! I thought, they're dead right. They're dead right. But instead, Thanos won. Thanos won the day. So it's looked at as a Thanos movie. It's incredible. But getting back to the main point that you were bringing up, Micah, is that I also believe, on top of that, I believe Doctor Strange is another one of those characters. And you know what's funny? Black Panther is great in Infinity War. But Infinity War did not make me look at Black Panther differently. Iron Man is great in Infinity War. But the Infinity War didn't make me look at Iron Man's older films differently. Captain America is great in Infinity War, but it doesn't make me look at older Captain America films differently. Thor, people look at Thor differently because of Infinity War, and I agree with you. I also believe Doctor Strange is somebody we can now go back and look at his first movie and look at the character even more differently now because of Infinity War. And yeah, so I think you're bang on the money there, Mike. I really do. All right. Brandon Torres, just have a few minutes left here, guys. Brandon Torres writes, Disney backed themselves into a corner. Gunn could have apologized again, and all this could have gone away, but they fired him and caused this storm. Well, I mean, look, I will, first of all, Disney did back themselves in the corner. Specifically, Alan Horn painted themselves into a corner. Alan Horn painted them into a corner. And Alan Horn's a genius, one of the most brilliant movie executives in the world. You may think you've got nothing but Kevin Feige to thank for the MCU, but above Kevin Feige is Kevin Feige's boss, who equipped him, who facilitated all of Kevin Feige's success, who gave all the right approvals and all the right... What we don't see is all the things Alan Horn said no to that may have saved the MCU as well. If you like the MCU, you better be thanking Alan Horn. But he really crapped the bed on the James Gunn thing. He did. The problem was... what Alan Horn should have said. Well, look, what Alan Horn did say is he came out and said, James Gunn's comments are not consistent with the values of Disney. Really? Because I can show you a lot of Disney old videos that aren't consistent with your videos either. You're going to fire yourselves. Anyway, his comments of almost 10 years ago on Twitter are not consistent with our values. Therefore, we are severing all business relationships with them. By saying that and by using that language, they painted themselves into a corner. Now they're making themselves look stupid by still using James Gunn's script for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. You just made yourselves look, wait a minute, didn't you just say you're severing all business relationships with them? I got news for you. If you're using his script, you're still in a business relationship with him. But they don't want to. Anyway, if Alan Horn had just said, and I've said this 1,000 times, I'll say it again, none of this would be a big deal right now, or it wouldn't be as big of a deal. If Alan Horn had come out and said, number one, if he had been honest and said, we at Disney, we were aware of these old tweets, but we were comfortable with who James Gunn had become instead, that he had long ago stopped writing things like that he had long ago changed that behavior, and we believe in James Gunn. However, if they really wanted to fire him, they could have said, however, we are also very sensitive to the responses and feelings of our community and our audience. And therefore, with a lot of heaviness, we sat down and talked with James, and we've decided that at this time, it would be appropriate for James and Disney to part ways for now. And we're going to move forward in the MCU and with Guardians of the Galaxy with somebody other than James. And we wish James Gunn all the best. We look forward to what he's going to do in the future and blah, blah, blah. So if they wanted to fire Gunn, they could have done it, and they could have handled it way differently. And while there would still be people bummed out that James Gunn's not going to direct the next Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think a lot of people would be as angry or as upset. I certainly don't think you'd see Dave Bautista as mad as he is right now. It just would have been a different environment had they just handled it differently. Even if they wanted to fire him, if they just handled it better, it still would have been much better. It would have been much better. Instead, they started it out with a lie by acting like, oh, we had no idea. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Don't lie. You're lying. You are lying. Liar, 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 liar. You are a liar, sir. So you don't start off with a big lie. Oh my God, we had no idea he wrote these things years ago. Shut up. Yes, you did. Because if you didn't, you're the most incompetent company in the world. In the world. And we know you're not the most incompetent company in the world. So if they just start off by telling the truth and said, we were aware of these things, but we are comfortable with that the fact that James, he's become as a person since those tweets years ago, and that he's changed as a person, and we felt comfortable working with him, and we celebrate that, but we are sensitive to the needs of our community, and we've spoken with James, and we decided for now it's best for us to part ways. If they had just said that, they wouldn't have painted themselves. Then it doesn't look hypocritical for them to say we're still going to use James's script. Instead, now they make themselves look like hypocrites. Because they said, we severing all ties with James Gunn. You're using his script, hypocrite. That's business tie right there. Whether you want him in or not, that is a very clear business tie, and you said you're severing all business ties with him. So, which is it? If they had just handled it different, I think this whole thing would have gone much, much better for everybody. Anyway, Mercier Create writes, how about Fred Gwynn, disorganized crime, cousin Vinny? I don't know what we're talking about. Are you talking about the movie Disorganized Crime? Are we talking about the movie My Cousin Vinny? I'm sorry, I don't know what we're talking about, man. Hardy Buck 4 writes, still to this day, I cannot come to a conclusion if The Dark Knight Rises was a good movie or disappointing. You know, here's my thing. I think it can be both. A movie, remember, disappointing doesn't mean bad. Disappointing does not mean bad. Disappointing just means it's not as good as you were hoping. It can still be good, right? A movie can still be good, and you can walk out feeling a little bit disappointed. That is how I felt with Dark Knight Rises. I believe it was both a good movie and disappointing at the same time. Those terms are not mutually exclusive. Disappointing does not mean bad. It's just that Batman Begins and The Dark Knight the bar was so high for both of them, that even though The Dark Knight Rises was still a good film, it just wasn't anywhere near the bar that had been set by the previous two installments. So I both felt it's good and it's a little bit disappointing. So I'll argue with anybody about why I feel like The Dark Knight Rises is a good movie. I'll tell you why. I mean, if you don't, that's fine. It's all subjective. But I'll give you my reasons why I think it's a good movie. But I'll also defend my position that it was also disappointing at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive terms. They can be both. They can be one and the same. They absolutely can. And I'm with you, Hardy. I'm with you. But I have comfortably come to the feeling that it is both. It is both good and disappointing. I'm no Chuck Norris, puts in $2. Hey, you know what's funny? This is true. Some of you guys know this. One of my first friends here in Los Angeles is a dude by the name of Chuck Norris. And Chuck Norris is actually the guy who edited my movie, The Anniversary. He edited my movie, The Anniversary, and his real name is Chuck Norris. That's his real name. And remember, we used to talk to him about that, because Chuck would tell us sometimes, I thought at one point about changing my name professionally because there's that Chuck Norris. And I thought, no, fuck that guy. Chuck Norris isn't even that guy's real name. And it's not. Chuck Norris isn't Chuck Norris's real name. That's not even his real name. Chuck Norris is my real name. I shouldn't have to change my name. So he kept Chuck Norris. You know what? Good on him for doing that. Chris Warden writes, let's see. Is there any other actor who does more for his fans than The Rock? No matter how tired he gets from his extensive shooting and media schedule, he always makes time for the fans with a smile on his face. Well, I mean, he does. He's great at that. I think there are other actors and things like that. Ryan Reynolds does an awful lot for and a lot of interaction with his fans. There are other stars who do that as well. But no, look, The Rock is one of these guys who clearly understands he is who he is because of his fans. And he understands that's the key to his success. Look, Dwayne Johnson knows he is not the world's greatest thespian. He's not bad. He's turned into a serviceable actor, in my opinion. But he knows it's his charm, it's his charisma, and it's the relationship and the love that the fans have for him and that he has for his fans. That is what propels and motors his career. That's the engine behind his career. And rightfully so, he treats it as such. And he's very good that way. I don't know if there's nobody else who does it as good. I think there are probably other people who do it as good, but he definitely does it great. All right, 2 more questions, then we got to wrap it up here, guys. Hardy Buck 4 writes, it's an old film, but have you ever seen The Field with Richard Harris, Sean Bean, and John Hurt? Truly amazing acting. Yes, I have, but I have said that before with other movies, and I was thinking totally of the wrong one, which we know about ad nauseum here. So let me just make sure it's the one, because the one I'm thinking about was in like 1988 or something like that. 1990, The Field. Yes, Richard Harris, Sean Bean, John Hurt, Jer O'Leary, things like that. Yes, I've seen it, but I can't remember much about it. I know the movie is literally about a field. I mean, that's literally what the movie is about. So the title of The Field isn't some weird allegory, not some meta kind of title. No, it's literally about a field. It's been a long time, because that movie was what? Well, it came out in 90. It's like almost 30 years old. So it's been a long time. I can't remember much about it. I cannot remember much about it, so I can't really say much. Kyle Brackman writes, which movie would you like to watch more between Forbidden Planet, 2001: A Space Odyssey? Oh, probably 2001: Space Odyssey. Yeah. I'll go with that all day, every day. No questions asked from me. Don't get me wrong. Forbidden Planet, cool. 2001: Space Odyssey. We've been talking about it. It's actually come up a lot lately because it just did screenings in IMAX across the country. A lot of people had a chance to finally see it for the first time ever and watch it there. So yeah, I'll take 2001: Space Odyssey. All right, one more question today. One more. And then, by the way, guys, from Kyle Brackman all the way down, don't worry if you sent in a question. Don't worry, it's not lost. I'm going to take that question and I'm going to address it in the next companion video. So keep your eyes open for it. You sent in questions, they will get answered. We're just out of time now for now, but I'll answer this one last one from Roy L., who writes, hey, John, one thing I like about Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime is their original content for TV shows. It reminds me of the beginnings of Fox and the WB, where other networks would never air them. Yeah, I mean, that's true. The really neat thing about these streaming services is it allowed them an opportunity, and it almost by necessity required them to do things that were radically different from what the networks were doing. Like if Netflix and Hulu are going to try to really establish themselves and their television original programming, you can't just do what the networks are doing. You got to do something different. So there's a necessity to that. But necessity breeds invention, right? Necessity is the mother of all invention, as the saying goes. But it breeds invention. And You're right. It reminds me a lot of those original days of Fox and the WB when they were doing these like kind of experimental shows in many ways. They were a little bit safer, granted, but when Netflix and Amazon and even Crackle has some original stuff, whatever, Amazon Prime, they're able to do some things that maybe never would have had a chance before, and now that they do. Now they do. And while I'm often critical of the original movies we get on Netflix, the television stuff they've done, they're not batting 1,000. There's a couple of stinkers, sure, but for the most part, they put out some dynamite shows, man. They put out some dynamite shows, whether it's Hulu or Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever. Like, you're seeing a lot of the Emmys get dominated by these networks now, which is really great and cool to see. But again, it all came out of a necessity to do something different from the networks. And they found some great success there, which is absolutely awesome. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Once again, if you sent in a live question that we didn't have time for, don't you worry. It will be addressed on the next companion video, probably coming up in the next day or two. Just keep your eyes open for that. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Don't forget the John Campea Show is back up tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 12 noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be going all over all the big movie news and all that kind of stuff, talking about our favorite things. Make sure you join us then. That'll do it for now. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.